So
I mean, we did some crazy stuff.
were you surprised with how it looked on camera in some cases?
Oh, everything looked even better than I imagined. Well, because half the time too, like you paint an image, it's your job to try to break it down for us the best that you can. But like we have the page and like that's about it. Then we show up on set and then all of a sudden, I can't get into details about everything.
No, we don't want spoilers, but we had a lot of fun working together.
Yeah, it was really fun.
You know so little, yet here you are. And I know so much.
So first of all, Chuck, this is your return to the genre after a long absence.
I'm having so much fun. I'm having so much fun getting back to horror.
Yeah.
I love doing these big action studio pictures, and I did some thrillers. I shot a movie in Hindi that was kind of against elephant poaching, where I had some big personal adventures. But coming back to horror has been a blast, and especially with Madison, she is game. She's ready. She's ready to work. Nothing in my practical effects actually scared her. You know?
No, they were so much fun. But it was so funny. I was having a conversation earlier today. Obviously, I've seen the film. You haven't seen it yet, have you?
No, I've seen it.
Oh, you have seen it. Okay, great.
Yes.
Because like what you do so well with, and even in your past work, is your practical effects that you tackle. And it was so fun to get to do that with you in this, because I do think those are like the moments in this film that really shine.
That's what we're hearing. People have different favorite I call them set pieces. And what Maddie did with her performance and her courage, and honestly her physical skill, really made it pop. So
I mean, we did some crazy stuff.
Were you surprised with how it looked on camera in some cases?
Oh, everything looked even better than I imagined. Well, because half the time too, like you paint an image, it's your job to try to break it down for us the best that you can. But like we have the page and like that's about it. Then we show up on set and then all of a sudden, I can't get into details about everything.
No, we don't want spoilers, but we had a lot of fun working together.
It was really fun.
Well, and I would say, and I don't think this is a spoiler, it's one of the tensest moments in the film is, I would say, the shower scene. And often when I talk to actors, the two things that they bemoan are excessive screaming and having to be soaking wet. So where do you fall on that opinion, Madison?
I mean, I will say it is just such a... It's like, talk about the most vulnerable place you can possibly be in when you're technically in a shower, and then also without getting in. Oh, I guess it is in the teaser.
Yeah.
Like the details of like hands coming out of the water. I mean, it's very like, you can't really make it up. Like it's
dude, those were real hands. Those were wonderful makeup effects by our makeup team. With people with scuba tanks. The bathtub was 8 feet in the air. I'm giving it away, but the shot is in the teaser, so we get to talk about it. And she had to drop straight down in this.
So yeah, it's basically this bathroom built on top of a giant tank where there were stunt people underneath grabbing up through water at my legs, and I'm basically standing there like in tiny little underwear to try to look in like you're in the shower and screaming on the top of your lungs. It's definitely not something that like anyone can just jump into, but like I don't know, when I look for stuff, the more ridiculous sometimes I find it to be, the more fun and challenging. And it came from his brain. So
look, we want to be scary, but the movie is fun.
Yeah.
It's kind of for me, it's the joy of horror films kind of fun. There is a dark sense of humor, I suppose, in this piece.
Oh, absolutely.
But I had the most fun coming back to something where, as a writer and as a director, I could just take my imagination and what I can do in practical effects and with some CGI enhancements. And I think practical effects are scary for the audience because they're a little scarier for you guys.
Oh, absolutely.
In other words, after we rig it and it's like calling action and you know shit's going to explode at you, it helps the performance be more authentically frightening. And I think it communicates that to the audience as well, as long as we're safe.
Yes. I mean, and also like nothing's worse than acting to a tennis ball, which I've done many times.
Green screen acting is a whole new technique in the last 10 more than 10 many years. So yeah, it's a whole different world when they know what's happening and it's coming at them in performance in films where you're really trying to be scary and pay off.
Well, and you have a lot of practical effects in the film, but there's also a lot of CGI blood. And I'm always curious, is that for practical on-set reasons, or is that just because you wanted the gore ramped up in post-production?
It's a new-ish thing because of some of the problems on set. I've worked safely with the blanks and squibs technique for years, but I'm fine with that as a compromise. So yeah, it's true. I would have preferred to have done some of that practical, but I think it looks good. Yeah. It's I think maybe this will pass because there is a very safe way to work with powder and do things correctly. But the technique works, and it's almost a way of being polite and saying, I don't want anyone to get hurt. And I like the culture of that level of safety. So I think that's not a big compromise.
Yeah. Well, and so this is a very loose reimagining of the original film. What made you want to go so different with this?
And I didn't start, it's a little bit like when I did the Blob. I don't like, I've been offered remakes of good movies. And I've said, there was no really reason to improve upon a particular film. The great thing about Witchboard and the Blob and even the Elm Street series at the time is I had a gut feeling I could take this farther. I can't even intellectualize it. But Witchboard is equally resonant. There are fans, when you say Witchboard, that love the original and they saw it when they were kids or whatever. And it created a subgenre of these board films, of the Ouija board movies. I think it was the first one. But I'd never seen a pendulum board, and I'd researched them before. I researched this stuff with people that really believe in it and do it. Look, I think it's human intention. I think it's real. Yeah, I think we should be careful. These are, I call them gateway drugs.
And careful, we have one right here.
We're making this a good interview. No, we're laughing, but it is to be cautious. I won't touch a real Ouija board.
Have you ever done one?
I've tried them, but Jamie's got.
Yeah.
In our first Zoom, Jamie goes, "Let's do this."
Oh no, he didn't.
For real. And I'm like, no, I believe it.
I'm not surprised.
I'm scared of this stuff, which is why it's easy to direct and write it. I think there's legitimately spiritual good and evil. And I think our human intention is really the magic part. If voodoo works because they put a voodoo doll at a person's door with a pin in it, and they're sending an intention, the person sees I'm supposed to have a stomach ache, it scares them, and they have a stomach ache. It's actually very little magic involved with that kind of thing. So, not to put down voodoo for those who practice it. And we try to look into Wicca and, who are the people that believe in what do they call white magic. But I think it's we're to be cautious of all of it. These are gateway experiences I don't advise, but they're great in movies.
Did you always want to ditch the Ouija board look and that design?
It so happens I've been interested in pendulum boards because they're so cinematic, and I got to design our own board. And I put symbols of good and evil in it, which some pendulum boards have. They were used for spell casting. And as wild as the movie is, a lot of the history is very accurate. Pendulum boards were outlawed by the French Pope in the 1700s. And that was the evolution of Ouija boards, because you'd get burned at the stake in France in the 1700s if you had a pendulum board. At that time, they were called spirit wheels. They had many names. So it was fun to say, how can I reflect on the character's personality or the set piece that's about to come with the characters on the board? What do they mean? Some of them are mysterious. Some of them are classic, real mysticism symbols. But I thought it was a great cinematic device to launch the movie and still honor the original.
Well, and Madison, this isn't your first time inhabiting two different roles for a project. How do you make sure to that?
She did a great job, don't you think?
Yeah. How do you make sure that it comes across as two distinguishably different people and characters?
I think it was already laid out so easily in the script already. And then once Antonia came on board, she just has such a specific portrayal of her character. So I mean, all the groundwork was laid out. All I really had to do was just kind of tap into her energy, which was so great. I mean, it just I don't know. It was
we get compliments on that with you.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. The change that comes over you. So
okay, fine. I mean, it was also just it was really fun. I always, when I look for different characters and roles, I like a challenge, and I like for things to. And it's funny, after I watched this for the first time, I think sometimes you black out when you work, and I didn't remember going through all these different. I feel like Emily goes through every single wave of emotion possible for a human being.
The performance is really wonderful. I just thought we had fun, and you were.
We had a lot of fun.
She's acting has a lot to do with courage. People don't realize that.
Mhm.
So her trust in me and her trust in the scenes and her fellow actors and actresses, in this case, really paid off. So, you know, I was always guiding you through this change, and we got amazing stuff on film.
Yeah, yeah, and it was one of those things I feel like we figured out as we went. I remember even on like our first table read, we were just kind of always shifting and like trying to figure out the best way to do it, which I'm very happy with how everything turned out.
Well, and you do this great thing that I always call them crazy eyes that are absolutely terrifying in the movie. And it made me want to see you as a full-fledged villain in a horror film.
I
So
would love any day. I mean, because listen, I think maybe it's my sweet little personality, but like I do always end up playing like the nice girl, but I would love to play.
She's a pistol, though. She has an inner witch. I promise you, she has an inner witch. She was able to tap into.
It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
that is awesome. Well, and I have to ask too, the movie has a very deep connection with cooking, with some of the characters starting up a restaurant. So what made you want to use that as a backdrop for the horror?
Well, you relatively recent twist that has been popularized in Wicca was called spirit cooking. And I don't know if it was 10 years ago or so. And I found that very compelling. And some of the imagery from the people that, I don't know if they're practicing it as fun, if they really mean it, whatever it is, it's pretty fascinating. So I saw a connection between New Orleans and food and even eroticism that's in this film, and magic. Cooking is a magical art, honestly. And then we consume it. I mean, so there's a little bit of foodie horror in our movie for sure.
Well, and New Orleans obviously has a very witchy background that like lends itself to the horror. So is that always the intended setting for the story?
For me, from the beginning, I had some suggestions when we were doing budgets. Can't you just make this a different city? You know, but the truth is New Orleans, Wicca, and even the cat as a familiar were things I hadn't really seen played together in the way I wanted to. So I had fun with that, taking the mythos of witchery a little bit further.
And the only reason I ever did this movie was so I could act with a cat.
we both love animals so much. We were like loving on this cat before every
The cat was the best part of the entire filming process.
Someone's gonna add that to the IMDb trivia now.
I mean, like because I'm the biggest cat lady, but it was a very strong appeal for me when I read the script. I've always wanted to work with a cat.
Tatiana was
She's a star.
she knows she's a star. She was a diva cat.
Yeah.
She was very cooperative, unless there was one take too many, and she would refuse. Literally refuse.
But for the most part, Tatiana did pretty much everything.
She did. I did
Which,
like one CGI thing.
But when you work with animals, you never know. It's always a gamble and I even remember like our first AD was like very tentative. We were like, are we going to get through our day? Like, what if the cat doesn't do?
Our first AD is, you've heard the term herding cats, because that's really what you're getting us into. Everyone's had bad experiences trying to get cats to do things.
Yeah.
But I'm a big animal lover. I won't let any cruelty of any form. It was all food and love. And Tatiana,
She's
I
a
think,
star.
wanted to be on camera.
She should be first
It worked
billed.
out. It worked out.
Well, and I have to ask you, since I have both of you together, and I saw Madison, you like lit up a little bit when Chuck mentioned Nightmare on Elm Street. And I have personally been waiting for a Nightmare on Elm Street like announcement, and I always hope that your name is attached. So, Madison, do you have any interest in joining the Elm Street series?
I mean, it's just one of the best. It's the best of the best. And yours is actually like my favorite, but I'm not gonna. I'm like
say that loud. Oh, that's great. Thank
you. That was like one of the big reasons I was so excited to work with you. It's just such a masterpiece of a film.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Yeah. I think that what Frank Darabont was my co-writer on the piece, and a dear friend. We brought a little more heart to it, and give Wes Craven kudos, God bless him, for coming up with such an ingenious concept, and Robert Englund, who's great. But to kind of be able to take that material further with such a great basis is kind of why I got into this. Remakes are fun. I can take a baseline of something that I love and the audiences love, and kind of take it further, personalize it, be even more imaginative. That's always been my goal. What can I do on film that I've never done before? We write things, we have no idea how to do them on purpose, so the result will be somewhat original.
Well, and Chuck, will we be seeing you in the horror world again, or are we gonna have to wait another 20 plus years? I
like comedy. I like the action. Comedy and horror are actually very similar because of the suspense and payoff. In one format, we're trying to get a laugh.
Yep.
In another format, we're trying to get a gasp or scream.
Mhm.
So I like it because as a filmmaker, you can sit in the audience. You don't need to read a review. You can hear it. You
Mhm.
know, it's a very reactive. Both genres are very reactive with the audiences.